I've had this tattoo for like 15 years, and it's stayed exactly the same. And you might be thinking, well, Nevin, maybe just your spaghetti arms, your old noodle
that's
arms
exactly
there,
what I was thinking.
haven't grown
That
in
is
15
exactly
years.
what I was thinking,
And I
yeah.
would say,
How dare you!
people feel better is because they stop eating Hungry Jacks and KFC for those 12 days. All right?
I feel great. I haven't had McDonald's for breakfast like I usually do every single day in a week, and I feel amazing.
That's right.
Go figure.
But like strength training, the more times you train in a week, giving yourself adequate recovery, the more benefit you get. So if you're training once a week, great, that's better than none. If you're training twice a week, fantastic, that's better than one, so long as you're getting enough recovery in. If you're training 3 times a week, fantastic, so long as you're getting enough recovery in. Okay, so that's the main thing. Welcome back, everybody, to the Big Flex.
Welcome back once again.
To the Big Flex, and we're going to be flexing on your questions today, people.
I've been hanging out for this one. I like these podcasts. Questions and answers. You've all asked us a couple of questions, mainly people from inside of the gym. We had a board up, we wrote them questions. They're now answering all the questions.
Yeah.
But we're occasionally going to throw some extra ones in there as well if they're good enough. So if you comment on these podcasts, which you should, but I mean before you comment, you should like and subscribe. And
Definitely
then
like and
comment.
subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, just go ahead and bench press on that subscribe button.
Tap it. Leave us some questions if you have any that we don't answer today, and we'll put them in the next one because we like doing these ones.
That's right.
We're going to do a few.
We don't know how long this will take either. If it's really long, we might split it into 2 parts. Otherwise, we'll try to fit it all into one longish episode. But yeah, I guess question 1 comes from Karen. Karen, one of our clients here, is pregnant. And pregnant Karen asks us, is there a limit to how much weight you can be lifting when you're pregnant and normally?
Well, from what I could find, there doesn't seem to be a limit to what you can do during pregnancy. Weight-wise, like how much weight you lift. There's obviously limitations. It was actually kind of fun reading about the exercises you shouldn't do. Horseback riding, skiing, there was water skiing and regular skiing. There was gymnastics. There was a great many
Basically
exercises.
anything that you can fly into a solidish object at high speed.
Yeah. Okay. The obvious ones, but it still had to be stated somewhere. Basically, anything that you were doing before you got pregnant, you can continue doing while you were pregnant. And
But not that horseback riding, right?
No, yeah, not horseback riding. If you're going to fall 2 meters, and I don't know how tall horses are, and then land on something, anything that would injure a normal human, you should probably not do while you're pregnant. But anything you're doing before you were pregnant, you can continue doing up until the day you give birth if you're able to. And it's highly recommended that even if you weren't exercising, you start some sort of exercise programming.
And I've heard there's some really extreme benefits from exercising while you're pregnant, Adrian.
There are all of the same benefits, obviously, of like normal people who aren't pregnant, same benefits as well. There's a few extra ones though. So during pregnancy, some of the benefits improve and maintain fitness, maintain healthy weight gain, which is important as well. This one kind of blew my mind, shorter labor, which is kind of cool.
I think that's probably a beneficial thing. No one wants to be in unnecessary pain for an unnecessary amount of time.
Shorter labor, reduced pain in general, and reduced risk of a C-section as well, which was really interesting. So the study that I looked at was released in 2017, so it's relatively recent. And one of the stating facts is that the scientific evidence demonstrating the benefits of exercise are indisputable and far outweigh the risks in most adults. So these were all uncomplicated pregnancies, all right? So if you're particularly different, you're having some complications within your pregnancy, then these rules don't necessarily
And consult with your doctor.
Exactly. This is studies and evidence that I've found online. I'm also not an obstetrician.
And when you say online, guys, this is from journal articles, not magazine articles, peer-reviewed journal articles.
Peer-reviewed, yes. This was from SportsMed. So I couldn't find anything that said there's no limit to the amount of weight that you can lift. Basically, one of the only guidelines for exercise that I could find was keeping your heart rate below 140 beats per minute. And then again, that was even updated in 2015. That was a previous guideline. The American College of Obstetrics, so I can say obstetrician, but it's obstetrics and gynecology. They no longer include that in their guidelines as limitation as of 2015. they now just use a RPE scale, so rate of perceived exertion, which is interesting as well.
And were they saying they should keep it below a certain amount?
They were previously saying that you should keep your heart rate below 140.
Right, but on an RPE, a rate of perceived exertion, just like as a 7, as an 8?
Just go to what you feel like you can do. So it's more like a personally perceived rate of exertion.
Yep.
If you feel like it's too hard, it's too hard. If you don't, it's not.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the RPE scale, generally it's a scale 1 to 10, 10 being like absolutely the hardest that could have worked, could not have worked any harder, 1 being super, super duper cruisy. So it's just basically anywhere between 1 and 10.
In a normal workout, if you're not pregnant and you push so hard that you pass out and hit your head on something on the way down, it's probably too hard, right? You don't want to be
10.5.
You don't want to be throwing up outside for half the session because it's just not an effective way of training.
Terrible way to work out.
The RPE scale is really just a way to regulate your training intensity to get the most out of your session. And so with some of the more recently updated guidelines, it doesn't really seem like there is a limit. So if you were strong before you got pregnant, stay strong. Keep being strong. Push yourself within reason. There doesn't seem to be any strict guidelines against how much weight you can or should be lifting. Really, it's just what you can handle, what you can take and recover from. And yeah, that's kind of interesting. The heart rate one I found most interesting because I've been doing that for years. So yeah, no, it's just
nice.
Karen, you got some hard work.
Yeah.
Put out.
You got some hard work ahead
of you.
But then also she did say, and normally, like, what is the limit to lifting weight? And I guess all the same things apply. Whereas, like, you know, you don't want to lift to the point where you're not actually training efficiently, you're throwing up, you're getting injured, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. But in terms of strength gain and how much weight is physically possible, Karen, I don't think anyone's found that limit yet. I mean, that's the reason why world records keep getting broken, right? Is because people keep getting stronger, lifting more weights, getting more efficient, better training techniques, better recovery methods. So the terms of human, you know, capabilities, I'd say that we're not there yet. It's
we don't know how much. And as science, medical science, exercise science starts to develop more and more, we see things like this and the knowledge we have improve more and more and more and change and develop. So I don't think there really is a limit at the moment.
No.
That'd be interesting, though. I wonder if that's written down somewhere, the strongest pregnant woman in the world.
I don't know.
And then how do they judge that? Is it first trimester, second trimester, third trimester? Are people just smashing 1 RMs while they're pregnant? I don't know. I'm going to have to do a little bit more.
You know, I'm sure there's been some powerlifters that have competed in, you know, world championships while, you know, pregnant, at least a little bit pregnant.
Yeah, probably.
And maybe gotten some really good numbers. So I'm sure there's some very strong pregnant ladies out there.
Let's test it out, Karen.
We'll see.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
What have we got next?
All right, you got Ash there. Do you want to read that one out?
Number of sessions a week for premenopausal
or perimenopausal women. So people going through menopause.
I see.
To maintain bone health. All right. So bone health there, I'm assuming means BMD, bone mineral density, which we know when women go through menopause, they drop in estrogen levels, they decrease, and they go through, osteoporosis that starts to happen, and bone mineral density decreases, which is why when women get older, as well as everyone gets older and bone mineral density decreases, they're much more at risk to break a bone if they fall, stuff like that, but women even more so. And
basically what happens is your body's going to start changing.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, yes, your body's going to start changing, all right? First, what happens? So bone mineral density does naturally decrease as people get older, and especially in women as they go through menopause. Basically, the question was, how many times a week does she need to train, or do people need to train that are going through menopause to maintain their bone mineral density or their bone health? And the answer is, just train. And the reason why is because everyone changes their hormone levels at different rates. People are built differently, different genetics. So your bone mineral density for every woman that's going through menopause will be different. There's not a correct answer. But basically, I did look at
the most correct answer. Do you want the most correct answer?
No, I'm still reading here.
You go first.
Yeah. Basically, in terms of how many times, I did a bit of a review. It was actually a systematic review on the last 10 years, over 900 studies looking at women going through menopause, and they were training anywhere between 1 and 3 times per week. And what they found was, and again, all the studies were varied a little bit different on results, but they found that doesn't matter whether it's 1, 2, or 3, they're all getting improvement. But like strength training, the more times you train in a week, giving yourself adequate recovery, the more benefit you get. Yep. So if you're training once a week, great, that's better than none. If you're training twice a week, fantastic, that's better than 1, so long as you're getting enough recovery in. If you're training 3 times a week, fantastic, so long as you're getting enough recovery in. Okay, so that's the main thing. Also, what they found was there were some slight differences between low intensity and high intensity training. So basically, they found slightly improved results with women that were doing high intensity training. So stuff that was like involving jumping, heavy weights, plyometric type of movements like that. If you're at the point where you can't physically jump around, that's fine. Low intensity resistance training will also give you great benefit.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah.
The guidelines that I know of are the minimum 2 times a week. If you're going through menopause or you do have low bone mineral density, minimum 2 times a week, and then anything after that is a bonus.
Yep, absolutely. Number 3, we have a question from Gordon saying, exercise, how did it affect dementia? Does it help? And I'll give this one to you.
Yeah, this is actually a really good one. It was very interesting. I found a meta-analysis actually of a whole bunch of studies since 1970. So from 1970 to 2003, the study selection was focusing on people 65 years or older. They had cognitive impairment and they were exercising specifically to see if exercise affected cognitive impairment. All of the things that the meta-analysis kind of sifted through and checked at were physical fitness, physical functioning, cognition, and behavior. Over all of the studies over those 30 years, 2,020 subjects were tested, and across all of those studies, they found that there is an increase in fitness functioning, physical functioning, which is like your body just working well and moving well, cognitive function, and positive behavioral changes. So cognitive function being things like memory, logic, problem solving, all of that sort of stuff, and positive behavioral changes across all of those studies over the last 30 years. Not the last 30 years, but 30 years since 1970. So yeah, very, very conclusively states that yes, it absolutely does help.
Good.
Yeah.
So if you are, if you've been diagnosed as, with dementia or Alzheimer's or any sort of issue like that, any cognitive impairment.
Even if you haven't been diagnosed, but you have it in your family.
Yes.
It's very important to start exercising and stay exercising. Don't start once you develop symptoms. It's very beneficial just in general to, keep everything healthy.
That's right. It's always easier to maintain your physical and mental readiness if you never let go, right? It's always hard to get it back if you stop training, or if you've never trained, it's hard to get it there in the first place. But once you have it, it's easier to maintain if you are doing your training.
I tell that to everyone all the time. It's easier to stay fit than it is to get fit.
100%.
Yup. Yes, that was an interesting one, actually.
I feel like we're just putting on the old doctor lab coat today. A lot of medical questions here.
What titles do you have with all your degrees? Do you have anything cool, doctor-y sounding?
No, maybe I'll just go back and get the PhD so I can just call myself Dr. Mills. You call me Dr. Mills on the gym floor.
And
Dr. Mills, I have a question.
You wouldn't even do it because you want a PhD. You would do it purely just to make people call you Dr. Mills.
I would make only you call me Dr. Mills.
I would not.
Yeah.
I refuse.
Well, yeah, you would have to.
It's written in my contract. All right. Next question. This one was from Steve. What are the effects of the function of the liver and kidney related to exercise?
Okay, so he actually just asked, what's the role of the liver and the kidneys? And that's a super broad question, Steve, because they literally have hundreds of jobs in your body.
Yeah.
Your kidneys, the big ones is like filtering out your waste to make urine. It helps balance your pH levels, regulate hormones, all sorts of stuff. Liver does a huge number of things, literally hundreds. But if we relate it just to exercise, that was my last little bit. I said related to exercise.
Yep.
Related to exercise, the kidneys filter out or regulate your extracellular fluid.
Yep.
So all that bloat weight that people are carrying around, they're trying to, get it out of you and, pee it out, right? So extracellular fluid for the kidneys. Also for the liver, there's a bunch of really important things. So its job is to take glucose from your food, pull it out of your blood, store it as glycogen, and then get that back out when you need it for energy. So in terms of exercise and your liver, it's super important because it's basically how you regulate and get energy. It does all the work for you, okay? So you need your liver, you need your kidneys, Steve. But too broad a question to go into all the details because we're not doctors and I don't have a,
that is a really broad question though. I'm just in my mind getting Vietnam flashbacks of exercise physiology. So when your trainer's like, hey, stop drinking, it's bad for you. It just makes you less effective and efficient when you're in the gym. Literally, less effective.
just in
and
life.
In life as well.
But here's a fun one for you, Steve. Though, if you worried about your liver and kidneys, you might have gone and gotten a blood test and say, oh, you've got some extra stress coming around. You're producing some extra enzymes from your liver that show that it's a bit stressed. It's not working great. It's probably because of the current lifestyle choices going on now. Don't buy into the 12-day liver detox. All you got to do is drink this powdered drink for $600 for 12 days and you'll go through and detox, because your kidney and your livers, they are the detoxing treatment.
They already do that. Your
That's
body
what they
does
do.
that by itself.
That's what they do. And the
can't
reason why people
detox
feel better is because they stop eating Hungry Jacks and KFC for those 12 days.
All right. I feel great. I haven't had McDonald's for breakfast like I usually do every single day in a week, and I feel amazing.
That's right.
Go figure.
That's right.
Yeah.
So kidney and liver, super important as it relates to exercise. Also very, very important.
One of my friends did a juice cleanse.
So silly.
And that's what I said. Literally, it's so
They literally,
silly. Why did you
one
do
of my
that?
friends did it, and they got ulcers in their mouth from all the.
They were like, I feel great. I think it was like a 5-day juice, something like that. Like, I feel great. I was like, yeah, but did you just have diarrhea for like a week straight? They're like, yeah, I pooped the evil out and now I feel good. It was the single best sentence that ever came from them. Just don't eat the evil and you'll be fine. Just eat healthy. Your liver and your kidneys, your body detoxes anyway. If it didn't,
That is their role.
you would very slowly build up compounds and things in your body until it became toxic and poisonous and you would die. So that doesn't happen because you already have that process. So don't buy into all of those detox. Snake oil. That's what it is.
Snake oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly. Anyways.
Byron had a good question next, and I know this stems because of his daughter. But basically, Byron asked, "When's it safe for kids to start training, or weight training, I should say?" And I believe he told me the story that his little daughter came and supported him at his powerlifting meet, and he's like, "Oh, when?" And she sees him training, and he's like, "When are you going to start training?" She goes, "When I'm 8," very definitively.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Oh, when's a good time to start weight training for children?"
Well, this was an interesting one because there used to be a lot of information about this with some hard guidelines, and then more and more and more as time goes by, the guidelines are less and less and less. And really all I could find about guidelines for strength training in children is once they're able to perform it safely and under the correct supervision of like a qualified coach, whenever, basically. Once they can do it safely, once they are coordinated enough to produce the movement, they can do whatever they can do. So there doesn't seem to be any restrictions really with weight training. Obviously, a 1-year-old isn't going to be able to chuck a barbell on their back. Then once kids are up and walking around and stumbling, they're still not going to be able to do that. But once kids are coordinated enough to run, jump, move, all that sort of stuff, when they're coordinated enough to produce the movements safely, then that's when they can do it.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting as well because I did a little bit of research into it as well, and similar thing. They don't give you like, hey, when they turn 6, you can get them doing bench press, and when they turn 8, it doesn't really work like that. It is more to do with their coordination and development.
Depends
So
on the individual.
with younger children in particular, you don't want to have a very structured exercise routine. Because they're young and they're absorbing everything like a sponge, you want them to have this like free open play where they're climbing over things, jumping, rolling, swinging, all these hanging, all these things that are really important to learn coordination, hand-eye coordination, whole body coordination, balance, stability. Is really important for them to learn. And if you just have them lying down in a bench press, only doing bench press, they're missing out on so much.
Yep.
So especially to the early developmental years, you want them doing a huge wide range of activities. And that's just why so many youth sports are great, like playing, Oz kick footy or soccer or touch rugby, because they're learning how to run and stop and change directions and all these things that are vital they're like the building blocks to being a better athlete later on.
And it compounds, exactly. The more you can get your child developing their fine motor skills and motor skills in general earlier on, the quicker and better they'll get at developing those skills. So over time, let's say you have a control group, one child just doing powerlifting, one child doing things like that. The kid doing powerlifting, sure, they'll probably be very strong, but then they're going to run into a wall and kind of get stuck with the kids who are just moving better, coordinated, understand movement and biomechanics in general from all of the other skills, are just going to perform better later on.
And this is actually shown in recent years in the US, American football, huge, right? Gridiron, absolutely monstrous
What
sport.
do they call it? Pee-wee? They call it Pee Wee football.
Yeah, I don't know,
over
but
there, I
yeah,
think,
maybe Pee Wee
something
football.
like that, yeah.
But what they used to find, or what they used to think was, because it's such a specialized sport, and I don't know if people that are listening watch a lot of American football, but there's so many players in a team, and they all have their roles. It's not like rugby where I could be a prop and still hang out on the wing and crash ball up the center. Like everyone has their role. You have a role. Go and do that one role.
How many
And it's
members
so
on a team?
specific. Well, it's like a 50-man squad because they have a defense team, an attack team, they have a special teams, and sometimes there's overlap, but a lot of times individual players.
Okay.
What they used to think was so specialized, you have to specialize from an early age. And what they found out now is more people getting to the NFL were multi-sport kids growing up. So the more sport you do and the bigger range of sports you do growing up, the more effective you'll be, hopefully, as an athlete in your later years.
It's interesting you say that, actually. I watched a documentary forever ago about ice hockey. There's a very difficult sport to develop power, strength on the ice, right? And some of the strength and conditioning coaches were finding that the best, most well put together athletes they were getting were from farms. They're just lifting, carrying, digging holes, stuff like that. Just performed better by far than any of the other people who just came from like a normal gym sort of background. And same sort of thing. They just have developed better skills in a better, more vast range, and they perform better overall because of it.
Yeah. And fun fact for you about ice hockey, because I actually did a bit of research on ice hockey when I was doing my master's in strength and conditioning, and one of the units was injury rehabilitation, was, do you know what the number one injury, and I say this with a pinch of salt, this was back in 2013, 14. One of the highest rates of injury in ice hockey was?
Face punches?
No,
what?
strained adductors on the insides of the legs because they're pushing out when they skate.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
if you're an ice hockey player and you want to reduce your risk of injury, you want to have flexible and strong adductors. That's the inside muscles running down the insides of your thighs, and you can do a Copenhagen plank. And
loving these.
Yeah. And I'm going to put maybe a little video. We haven't filmed it yet, so I can't do it, but come back and look later. We'll do a Copenhagen plank tutorial. It's going to be amazing.
You've been doing that with everyone lately.
Yeah.
Cool.
Also, sorry, we're going to circle back to Byron's question.
Yes.
We're going to address some of the things that people have concerns about with lifting weights with children that actually don't have any foundation anymore. One is it stunts your growth.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What they found is that no, if kids
It
or
does.
younger people going through adolescence are lifting weights, it's not going to stunt their growth.
You know the theory behind it was?
Well, they just thought it would stunt your growth, but really what they say, it's going to damage your growth plates, which is not true.
which
The
does
only
not
time
happen.
it damages your growth plate is if you have an acute injury.
Yep.
So if you like break your bone near a growth plate or you have some sort of crazy impact, then maybe. But again, if you're lifting safe weights responsibly under
That's
good
been
technique, that will
debunked.
never happen.
That does not happen. That used to be the theory with it stunts your growth, but that is not
Old wives' tale.
Yeah.
Another thing that's been debunked is, lifting weights is really dangerous, really high risk of injury, and that's not true at all either. If you look at the rate of incidence of injury in weightlifting and powerlifting, all right, with children and adults, both incredibly low compared to sports like football, American football, rugby, because it's the same lift being repeated over and over again, or a couple lifts being repeated over. It's a very controlled environment. Yeah. Whereas in footy, you might get someone jump onto your back trying to get a mark behind you and just dig their knee right in between your shoulder blades. So it's very
rugby,
uncontrolled, unpredictable.
Cleaned up from the side, and someone snaps all three of the tendons that connect your knee to the bottom of your freaking body. You don't get that. There's no one tackling you from the side in the gym. It's very, very controlled. I'd say the only real danger would be when you get into much more advanced things like ollie lifting, which is very advanced. It's to be taken with a grain of salt, I think. There, like, you can obviously do dangerous stuff in the gym, but don't.
Yeah, I don't. But even Olympic weightlifting, very low risk of injury.
Yeah,
very low risk of injury
because people don't just go crazy with it. They're taught from a proper, like a coach, a professional who knows what they're doing and knows how to teach it. You're not just doing bro science, tossing stuff around and hoping for the best.
That's right.
That's the biggest takeaway is under the supervision of a professional.
Yeah. And then people are like, well, that doesn't make sense because you look at, some of these powerlifters in the small weight classes and they're just like these tiny little nuggets. Or you look at gymnastics and they're all so short, it must be damaging their growth plates. No, it's just basically the people that grow skinny and tall, they just get beat out of the sport. They're just not good enough to compete against people that are naturally smaller.
And that's biomechanics. Yeah. Let's say I'm me, right? And then I'm competing against someone who is much taller but the same weight, okay? I weigh the same as them. We have the same roughly amount of musculature. We should be able to move the same weight. I'm lifting way more. They have to.
You should have more musculature because they will have more like skeleton weight and stuff like that.
I'm lifting the weight less. It's not moving as far as they are having to pull it, lift it, push it, anything. So I'm just covering less distance. I'm doing less work. It's easier for me to move that weight. That's why short people, they're not short because of powerlifting. They gravitate towards powerlifting because they're good at it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Or they're the ones that stay in it because they're succeeding in it.
Yeah.
And instead, that you can still be monstrous, but basically, as you get taller, you have to go up weight classes.
Yeah.
Right? So you won't see any string beans, a foot and a half taller than Adrian competing in the same weight class. It's just not going to happen. Everyone in Adrian's weight class is actually up to here on him. They're much shorter and thicker.
Much shorter, yeah.
He has to go up a weight class if he wants to be more competitive.
Even the guys who were in the like 90 and 100 was still my height.
Yes.
They were just massive.
Yeah, just real thick, real dense muscle.
Yeah, so it doesn't stunt your growth. People who are shorter tend to gravitate towards
certain
which
sports.
benefit them more biomechanically.
Yeah, if you're a coxswain in a rowing boat, just because you're sitting there steering the rowing boat, that's usually a really small person.
I know nothing about rowing.
Okay, or a jockey. It's like, just because you're a jockey doesn't mean that riding horses made you small. It's just small people are suited to be jockeys, so they want to be lightweight.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
That's actually a good analogy.
Yeah.
Riding horses makes you short.
That's right.
Correlation does not equal causation.
Correct. We've got a couple fun questions coming up next. Ooh, Jake. We'll go Jake's first.
Yeah, right. Okay.
All right. Do you want to ask it?
Muscle growth and the effect on tattoos. So I think what he was asking was, just getting jacked affect like stretch tattoos?
Will it stretch out your tattoo?
If you get really jacked, like massive, like if you get a tattoo on your arm and then put on 40 kilos in a year, yeah, probably. But then you'll just get stretch marks everywhere because of that.
Yeah. I doubt it's going to... And let me just say this, Jake. I've had this tattoo for like 15 years and it's stayed exactly the same. And you might be thinking, well, Nevin, maybe just your spaghetti arms, your old noodle arms,
exactly what I was thinking.
Haven't grown in 15
exactly
years.
What I was thinking.
And I would say,
how dare you?
But all right, that's probably the case. I would say that if you got like a really big tattoo and then you got like a massive weight gain, it would stretch a little bit, but probably not that much. I mean, you see some gigantic bikers with tattoos, and I bet they weren't all giant when they got the tattoos, right?
I've got a couple of tattoos on me as well, and I've even in a year like gone up and down 10 kilos, and it hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
You see it a lot in younger guys who tend to put on a lot of weight when they first start lifting weight, especially in people who like to use steroids, who put on a lot of weight very quickly.
Use your Mexican supplements.
And you see just big stretch marks like through your chest, through your biceps. That's where I tend to see the most on males, are like kind of through this part of your chest here and your biceps. You get like just normal stretch marks. Stuff like that, if you had tattoos around there, probably. But you have to put on a lot of weight
size,
very quickly to start stretching your skin. So the secondary to that was, when should I get one?
And his mum also trains here. She saw the board and she goes, well, it doesn't matter, Jake, because you ain't getting one.
So probably when...
So the answer, Jake, is not anytime soon.
Never. Or just get one on your butt where she'll never see it.
Hey, man, we do not condone secret tattoos from your mother. Now...
I do.
Well...
What?
Jake,
you're going to check
no
his butt?
tattoos.
Check his butt daily. That's how you're going to find out. That's weird. Everyone
weird.
stop being weird, all right?
All right, no tattoos for you, Jake.
Butt tattoo, Jake, do it.
Not anytime soon, Jake.
I challenge you to get a butt tattoo.
Do not do it, Jake.
All right.
Then Brooke. Brooke
This was savage, actually. I did not expect this from Brooke. Brooke is lovely, and every now and again...
Brooke is lovely.
She is hilarious. Her question was...
will I get better gains if you have a better sound system in the gym? And the only thing I have to say to that, Brooke, is if I turn my sound system up, I won't hear you talk. So that's what we're going to do.
Next time she trains?
Next time she trains, she'll turn it so loud, she's going to go, well, and we just won't be able to hear what she says. How dare you,
She
Brooke?
thinks that she believes that your sound system doesn't have enough bass.
Doesn't have enough bass?
Yeah.
What are we? Going to some sort of rave? Need your doof-doof?
If we wanted to, why not?
How dare you, Brooke? How dare
That
you?
was pretty savage. But
our sound system is ample, an ample sound system.
It is, but I think it does make a big difference. You got to have a good sound system in your gym. It makes.
But it gets so loud. We could literally turn it up and not hear anyone talk.
Maybe
it was so loud. Ash, the massage therapist, had to put a sign on it saying, "Please be considerate when I have clients. Don't go crazy with the music," because it's a great sound system, bro.
Well, there you go, Brooke. You'll have to take it up with management.
You've hurt my feelings. You've hurt my feelings. All right. There's a suggestions box. It's in the bathroom in the bin.
Just write suggestions on the toilet. There it is. Put it in there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Blake's got a good question.
Yeah.
Why am I so much stronger than Jared?
Yeah, and the reason
That is a good question.
Blake asked it. So Jared used to be like in here all the time, lifting heavy, and then he like was doing different things and doing a bit more mobility and hanging out and all this sort of stuff and focusing on jiu-jitsu and getting in shape because he's like passing his military test, fitness tests and everything. And Blake, who's just been old dark horse Blake here. So Jared's best squat was a 175 with knee wraps and a belt and lifting shoes. Old dark horse Blake here. Just been plotting away at it, just low-key coming in every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince him to train more than once a week, and he doesn't because he squatted. He squatted raw dog, which so basically in his running shoes, no belt, no wraps, nothing. Squatted a 180, pretty comfortably too.
Very comfortable.
He's going to be in the 200 club in no time flat.
So as for the answer to that question, why am I so much stronger?
It's all about heart.
Exactly.
It's all about heart, Jared.
I used to train Jared a little bit, and he was very inconsistent. Busy lifestyle, getting ready for the military, all that sort of stuff as well, right? Just wasn't training very consistently at all. And he would say, it's all about heart. It's all you need. It's all about heart.
He's asking, he's like, I'll go do this beep test. What do you have to get? I don't know. Have you tried? No, I haven't. You know if you're going to get it. It's all about heart.
It's all about heart. To his credit, he smashed it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did really well. But it's the consistency. So Jared just tries very hard. But trying hard and training consistently over a long period of time is very different.
Yeah.
So Blake has just been, like you said, slowly plotting away at it, coming in every Tuesday, once a week, and now he's smoking Jared. And that's why. It's all about heart.
In saying this, he's got a long way to go on his deadlift. Right, Jared was pulling 220 plus on his deadlift.
Yep.
And so he's got a long way to go there.
So do you reckon just instead of squatting once a week now, deadlift once a week?
No. I want to get him in the 200 club. He's going to get the 200. I told him he has to get a belt at some point. Yeah, you got to get a belt at some point. I'm trying to convince him.
That 180 looked easy, but that's why. Very consistent over a long period of time.
That's right.
Yeah,
and a little bit of heart.
And a little bit of heart.
A little bit of heart. Andrew had a couple of questions. He had a two-parter. He had one that was just our thoughts on something, and the second one is a bit more of a health and related question. But the first one was Demetri Klokkov, who we've talked about before on this podcast. Was an Olympic weightlifter, incredibly strong behind the head presser, and he's made the move from weightlifting to CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And I think he's trying to become a champion in like the masters division of CrossFit. Yep. And he goes, what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think he did it? And I don't know if you have an opinion on it too, but he's one of those ultra competitors, Andrew. Like Klokkov is just a savage. And he's already sort of conquered the world of weightlifting, as far as he could. And he's not going to be going to the Olympics and winning gold medals anytime, now. He's that part of his life is behind him, but he's still a weapon and he still wants to compete. He wants to be the best at something. So CrossFit has a big Olympic lifting component to it. So if he can get fit enough, he's definitely got the strength and power to crush all of the strength part of the lifts.
I think that a lot of what makes a CrossFit athlete is just the mentality, because they do so many different disciplines. It really, a lot of the time, comes down to just doesn't matter what you're physically capable of, is how hard you can push yourself. They do some crazy stuff in the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
So I think he has that. He's definitely a crazy person.
Yeah.
And he's strong and fit enough to compete. So I think it's just another way for him to stay competitive for a very long time.
Yeah. He just wants to challenge himself.
Yeah.
And so, I think he'll do very well. I think he's competing. I don't know if he's competing in Opens or like in Masters, but he'll do well wherever he goes. I think he's a bit of a savage, just all around savage.
He's a savage.
Yeah.
Dude's crazy. And then the second question was about sleep tips for bad sleepers. For that one, I'll actually leave this.
Yeah.
To yourself.
So I can link it right here, right now. Do it. Yeah, you can see it. It's an episode that I did on the Strength Institute podcast with Dr. Ian Dunnican. He's a PhD sleep scientist. If you haven't watched it already, go and have a watch. It's really interesting. He has a huge amount of helpful information where he breaks down sort of what a sleep cycle is and healthy habits. What did he call them? He called them good sleep hygiene, I think is what he called them, which is just like good practices to do to get better sleep. And so just to name a few, but definitely go back and watch this, your bedroom should be for two things only: sleeping and sex, is what he says. All right? This is PhD sleep
I thought it was
scientist.
sleeping and eating. Damn it.
No, sleeping and sex. So basically, there should be no electronic equipment, maybe an alarm clock on the other side of the room, as long as there's not light coming into the room, right? So the bedroom should be for sleeping only. If you're used to being in your bed, playing on your phone, doing all this sort of stuff, watching TV, if you have a TV in your room, terrible. It's going to keep you awake. Also, he suggests for up to 2 hours before you go to bed, you're trying to decrease the amount of stimulus you're getting. So no video games, no computer games, no action TV shows, all right?
Oh, God.
If you are hyping everything up, it's very hard to turn it back down when it's time to go to bed.
Yep.
Okay?
I don't mean to bash on all of the other Strength Institute podcasts that you've done.
Yeah.
But out of all of the ones that you have done, the sleep one, the one that you're talking about, is by far I've found out the most interesting and the most helpful.
Very interesting.
The other ones are great, but the sleep one was really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally.
Well, it's a popular podcast.
Yes.
Also, a couple more good sleep practices. There could be supplementation. So magnesium before bed definitely can help with sleep in some cases. And also there might be some bigger underlying issues, like a lot of bigger guys will have sleep apnea to a certain degree. And so it might be something as simple as getting a CPAP machine to help you sleep if you have sleep apnea, or going and getting tested to see if you do have sleep apnea. But there are a couple things that you can do right off the bat to improve your sleep, and definitely go watch the other episode, and that will give you a more in-depth view on what the sleep cycle is like and how to have better sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
And then we've got Lily.
Lily.
Asking, is weight training more effective for fat loss, or is cardio more effective for fat loss? It seems like Nevin and I disagree on this.
Well, we might have some common ground.
All right. I'll go first. Weight training's better.
Cardio is better.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Cardio is better.
Why?
Well, let me give you a stellar example.
Yes.
Okay. If you watch the marathon runners at the Olympics, okay, let's pick a high level event, because I ran a marathon. You know how that goes, and I was a little bit thick around the midsection.
Easy too, right?
It was easy. Yeah. If you're looking at high level marathon runners,
Yes.
or any endurance athlete, so triathlon, marathon, right?
Yep.
They do not have an ounce of fat on them. And
Okay.
while they might do some weights, the vast majority of their training, and because it's shown that, by increasing strength in the gym helps with economy when you're doing your endurance sports. So they do, high level guys will do some gym. But the vast majority of their exercise is endurance, cardio work, right? And there's not an ounce of fat on them. Now, take the other side of that. Who does the most weightlifting?
Weightlifters.
Power lifters, weightlifters, right? And if you go to the heavier divisions there, not so much the light divisions, because you're trying to be as heavy as possible in the
like
lightweight
the
class.
open categories?
Looking
Yeah.
at not even the open, like even some of the guys that are in the 90s and stuff. There's pretty thick guys there as well. But you look at the open weight people, there's a lot of fat hanging up there. All right.
Sure. So I understand your example. However, that's not really answering the question, right? So let me give you a bit of a hypothetical here.
Please.
So the question is, weight training more effective or cardio more effective for losing weight? Let's say you're not training at all, right? And you want to lose weight. You do cardio. One person does cardio, another person does weight training. Now, what is more effective at losing weight,
Yeah.
right? I would argue that, sure, cardio is effective, but I don't think weight training is less effective. I think it's as effective.
Okay. I would disagree. Basically,
Because
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's less effective because when you do cardio, for example, there are aerobic effects. You increase your cardiovascular capacity, but there's not much of a resistance component. When you do resistance training, basically when you do cardio, you just burn calories. When you're doing resistance training, you're literally building things in your body to make you more effective and more efficient at doing those same things. When you do a weight training session, you recover, you build muscle, and then you use that muscle. You've got more cells in your body burning more calories, right? So you burn calories during the session, you burn calories in recovery after the session, and then you become better and more effective and efficient at burning calories later. So it's not necessarily doing 1 RMs, but you can do some high intensity weight training that will get you, I feel like, better effects long-term, even not long-term, than better. I would say similar, specifically for weight loss, right? I don't think it's more effective or less effective. I think both, either you can use to as effectively lose weight.
I agree that you can lose weight by doing training. And let me just say this as a caveat over the top of everything, is that I think that if you're trying to lose weight, you should be doing a combo of both.
Absolutely do both.
If you had to pick one or the other and your goal is just to lose weight, I think cardio is the answer. And let me explain my reason why. As someone that had that little stint where I was running a lot to get up to the marathon distance,
Yep.
I know exactly how many calories I was burning per hour.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I know exactly how many calories I burn when I do a gym session. And where the goes, because when I was doing crazy heavy lifts with bigger breaks,
Yep.
I've also done general strength training. I've also trained for strongman. And I'm burning half the calories in the same amount of time doing weights than I am doing a run.
But when you were running, you were running a marathon.
No, but this is my training.
Most
This is
people
my
aren't
training.
going to
So-
run a marathon to lose
Right.
weight.
But what I'm saying is, this is in my training. That's an hourly rate. So me running for an hour would burn over 1,000 calories, a little over 1,000 calories, right? It's scalable. If I was doing a half-hour run, a 5K run or a 6K run, I would burn 650 calories.
Yep.
But if I'm doing it the same duration of time in the gym, doesn't matter whether I'm doing the heaviest that I can do for low reps or more reps or strongman, I'm not burning the same number of
But
calories.
you're talking about like high intensity strength training, right? You're not
Yep.
talking about high intensity training. So not necessarily heavy lifts, but what about just resistance training in general? You can set up some really high intense
yep.
circuit training. with
I
weight
would
training.
argue that that circuit training is a form of cardio. It's cardio training. So what defines cardio? Does it have to be a run? Does it have to be body weight? Does it have to be swimming, or can it involve weights? Yeah, cardio can involve weights.
Okay.
So if you're talking about, and I think what Lily's probably, and I could be putting words into her mouth, but she's training for powerlifting meet. I think when she says weight training, she's thinking more about what she's doing,
Yeah.
not CrossFit,
Yeah.
as opposed to going for a run.
So I guess the answer is it depends. Depends on what style of training you're doing.
Yeah.
So definitely a mix of both. Like circuit training would be a good example of that.
High intensity interval
High
training.
intensity interval training.
You can burn a heap of calories doing that.
Lots of resistance added in there as well.
Yep.
To make sure you're getting the best of both. But yeah,
But what's the number one most important thing when you're trying to lose weight, Adrian?
calories.
Calories and nutrition,
Yep.
right? It all comes down to calories in versus calories out.
does.
So
It
if
does.
you are eating a good amount of calories for your size and weight of where you want to be, it all depends on where you're going to burn
Yeah.
the calories most, whether it be cardio. Are you willing to sit on that cross trainer for an hour, or are you going to train for maybe an hour and a half in the gym to make up the same amount of calories? It's whatever you're going to burn most on.
People ask me that so much. If you haven't checked out my Instagram account, go to my Instagram account and look at the before and after
Coach
picture
Badrian.
I posted a little while ago. I wanted to lose about 10, 11 kilos. We talked about this in some of the previous podcasts as well, and get my body fat down low. And I was about 5 or 6% body fat for like 2 years without trying. Carnivore. It was great. I counted every single calorie the whole time. I was very, very strict with my diet because I hate cardio. I hate it with a passion. I never did any. What cardio do you do? What do you do for your abs? I don't. I lift weights and I eat well, and that's it. You can get to whatever shape that you want. You don't have to do cardio. Just eat better and don't do cardio because it's the worst and it's stupid for stupid people. I don't like cardio. All right?
Which is fair
so
enough.
you don't have to. If you want to burn a lot of weight, lose a lot of weight very quickly, obviously increase your output, do everything that you can. But you don't have to do cardio to lose weight.
Correct.
Also, another really big part of why I think that you should do weight training instead is because if you do cardio, you look the same and that's it. You just lose a bit of weight. If you do weight training, it changes your physique and you look better as well. So from an aesthetics point of view, I just think weights is better.
Weights are better for that as well.
Yeah, for everything.
100%. But calories in, calories out, I think, is the deep underlying answer there. Okay. Jess,
What's more effective? I think that both would be more effective.
Okay, I think, yeah, if you were to say what's more effective, I would say whichever one you could do that burns more calories and that you would do consistently.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Next.
Jess.
Is tendon thickening from injury always bad?
Right, and that's a great question. I know Jess had a lot of Achilles tendon issues when she was a bit younger, and she probably has some tendinopathy there where it's thickened up and scarred up a little bit, which is pretty common. You see people with tendon issues have tendinopathy. Now, let me just give you a couple of definitions here. Tendinitis, itis being inflammation. We're not talking about that. That could just be from like jarring up your ankle and you have, or like overstretching your Achilles and you have some inflammation in there. We're talking about tendinopathy or tendinosis. Very similar. It's basically
So what is tendinopathy?
it's the degeneration of collagen proteins in the tendon, which make up like 90% of the tendon.
Yep.
Okay, and tendons are very elastic and very nice. Now, the reason why I think she asked this is because we know, and we're talking about muscle and tendon stiffness, which is one thing, and also the cross-sectional area or the thickness of your muscles and tendons. So I think research for quite a while has shown that if you have a bigger muscle cross-sectional area, which is like the girth of your muscle, you have more you can store more potential energy. You have more potential to build strength, all right, and power. Same with a tendon. The thicker your tendon is, assuming it's a healthy tendon, it can store more elastic and potential energy. Okay, not so much when it's thickened because of an injury. Basically, the tendinopathy just means that degeneration. And what degeneration means, it could be scarred up. There could be scar tissue in there. It could be a lot of inflammation in there as well. There's a huge number of things that could cause it. It could be from an acute injury or an overuse injury, like if you've torn your Achilles tendon, or if you have issues like a repetitive stress issue going through there. You can get this tendinopathies, and it thickens up. That is not good. That's not good. So no, I guess the answer is if it's thickened up because of an injury, it basically means the proteins that are in there, they're degrading. They're not as good quality. So you're higher risk for injury. They can't produce as much force.
This was an interesting one. I remember doing, I've wrote a paper on this at uni actually, the tendon, specifically to do with tendon thickness and plyometric work. And tendon thickness is very, very important. You can train that a little bit. You can train that and it's very, very useful. Tendon thickness in general isn't great because usually tendon thickness in general is like from something like an injury or like lack of range of motion isn't great. So if you're trying to specifically train for that, it's great. If you haven't trained for it and you haven't had an injury, it's not effective. It needs to be trained.
Right.
So from an injury, if you're not trained to produce more force and take more force, absolutely not. But from training in general, if you produce that tendon thickness, that's what you want, right?
Now,
so that's the defining difference, I think.
And just I've written down a few things here that if you have constant like burning in like a tendon, stiffness, like reduced range of motion at the joint, these are all signs that you could have tendinopathies. You can always go and get that checked out, get a scan, right? Don't just assume that it's just swollen from something else. Like there might be something underlying that's going on there. But there are some things that. And also, when that happens, you reduce its elasticity. You reduce its potential to have stored energy. It hardens and thickens. It's not good. You can do things to improve it. You can get massage. There are some surgical interventions to remove scar tissue. You can do like platelet-rich plasma injections. There are certain things, stem cells, that can actually help reduce or reverse the issues that you have with tendons. And that leads us into the second point, which is stiffness. So thickness and stiffness, two different things. Cross-sectional area and the stiffness, two different things. People always say, is it better to be really flexible when you lift weights? The answer is sometimes, if that prevents you from going in and getting injured or to getting into a good position, fantastic. Can you be too flexible? The answer is also yes. Think of a rubber band, all right? A muscle and a tendon is sort of like a rubber band. If you have a rubber band and it's just loosely stretched, there's no potential energy. There's nothing stored in it. It just flops around.
There's also no tension, which is important as well.
Right. If you stretch that rubber band, you can send it flying. It has so much more potential energy. So you want your muscles and tendons to be a little stiff. All right. You still want to have good range of motion at your joints so that you can do everything correctly. I'm going to keep finishing.
Yeah.
One second. Then think on the far end of that. If it's too tight and you stretch, what happens? Snaps. You get injury, right? So you don't want to be too tight. You don't want to be too loose. You want to have a good amount of stiffness in the tendons and muscles. And how do you get that? By strength training.
Yeah. And that was exactly what I was going to say. So leading up to the squat challenge that we did, everybody gave me so much crap for squatting as deep as I squat. You could be so much stronger if you just squatted to depth. Why do you have to squat so low? Point pride. That's why. Deal with it. I like squatting ass to grass. But one of my biggest problems with my squat is that if I don't keep enough tension at the bottom of my squat, it just pushes me to the ground. I don't have enough tightness and tension in my body. I have to really work at it to keep and hold a shape. I just fold under the pressure. And if you push that a little bit further, if you can't produce that tension, you can't lift heavy weights. You're limited by being too elastic and not being able to produce the tension to hold a shape. So it absolutely affects your strength training. I 100% could squat way more if I reworked my squat and didn't squat ass to grass.
It would take you a long time because it would take you a long time to get the muscles to stiffen up and work to that point.
Also, no, I like the way that I squat. But yeah, so being too tight, let's keep the example as squat, for example. Way too tight, can't get to depth, doesn't matter how much you can squat, doesn't matter how strong you are, it doesn't count in any competition, right?
And increased risk of injury.
Absolutely. And then same on the exact opposite end. If you're way too loose and you can't hold your shape, then you're going to bomb out and fold under the weight of the bar. And same thing, you'll get a no lift if you collapse and die underneath the bar, right? So somewhere in the middle is usually the best.
Yeah.
It depends on the sport.
And so, Jess, you're a massage therapist. Book in with one of your friends, get some massage work done on those Achilles. If it's still an ongoing issue, see a doctor. See, you can find out how much does some PRP cost. Do some research into those recovery methods.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah,
Actually.
we have Claire up next. Stress. How does stress affect weight loss? It is a good one. You can start this one.
Well, stress can affect weight loss in many different ways and for many different reasons. There's a few different facets, I think, most important to discuss. I think one of them would be just the general psychology of stress and how it affects your lifestyle, and then the physiological effects of what stress can do to you. So the psychology of stress, and I'm generalizing, right? But when people get stressed and work is busy, life is hectic, people tend to get a little emotional and they do things like emotional eating. Or they do the exact opposite and they don't eat at all. And so these indirect effects of stress can cause lifestyle changes, which cause you to put on weight or lose weight, right? So that I think is
Same
one
thing. If you're stressed and it's too much and you're feeling just flat and depressed about things, you don't want to go to the gym. So you might be eating too much, eating too little. You might be not training at all because you just can't be bothered.
Or in some cases, training
too much.
7 days a week.
That might be your coping mechanism, and you train.
Exactly. Right? And if you're not eating enough and training a lot, then that's causing a physical type of stress in your body as well. It compiles. So the first, I think, an easiest one to distinguish there is just lifestyle, the way that it affects the psychology behind stress in general with regards to training and nutrition.
Yep.
And then the second is more of a physiological. This one is where it gets a little more complicated because stress can manifest in very physical ways. It can cause clinical issues as well. There are lots and they are varied. A friend of mine got stomach ulcers because he didn't like his job. It can manifest in very physical ways.
Yep, you can get stomach ulcers,
adrenal fatigue, all sorts of stuff that can happen. And there's lots, and I don't know enough about them to state them specifically.
Stress can, like you said, manifest physically in the form of like ulcers. It can actually decrease your metabolism. We were having this little debate beforehand, saying, people will eat at a deficit and put on weight. And when I was like, it's not really a deficit if they're putting on weight. He's like, but it's a low amount. It would be a deficit for someone else. But the answer is if it's affecting you hormonally, then you need to go and see an endocrinologist and get that sorted out because that's an issue.
It can cause issues that will slow down your metabolism or speed them up. And that can really, really mess with you. And just a stressful lifestyle that you don't keep in check can develop into something more serious. So it's good to stay on top of that and not ignore those.
Well, they have the hormone called cortisol, which is called the stress hormone. And so people that are stressed usually have elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol wants you to be smaller, basically. If you look at someone that's an endurance athlete, they usually have higher cortisol levels. So the body doesn't want to be big. It needs to be more efficient so that you lose weight. At the same time, can also increase your blood pressure, which means you might not want to be training. Again, it can cause people to gain weight or lose weight. It depends on the person. It depends on how it manifests emotionally and how it manifests physically with that person.
One of the ways to deal with that pesky hormone cortisol is exercise. Yeah, exercise releases good hormones in your body, which can help to catabolize, break down that hormone in particular, which help with stress in general. That's why one of the main things that people report when they first start exercising is increased mood.
Increased mood, sir.
Increased mood, high energy levels, better sleep. Those are usually the three things that everyone say. All of the time, which is great. So, exercise and nutrition. It's the answer to everything all the time. Just train regularly and eat well. You'll probably just be fine. But that was a very interesting one.
Talking about training regularly and eating well, that sort of brings us to your question, which is bodybuilding healthy?
Because I'm just asking you that because I know my answer. Nevin, is bodybuilding healthy for you? Strictly speaking, competing in bodybuilding, why and why not?
This is interesting, and I think it's gotten more complicated over the last handful of years with the introduction of all the new categories. If I was thinking bodybuilding like Mr. Olympia, like bodybuilding on stage, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Arnold Schwarzenegger, those sort of guys, the big dogs now. And mind you, bodybuilding back then with like Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's now called classic bodybuilding. It's a whole different division. The guys now are huge.
Back when people looked like a human being with a slightly bigger physique instead of looking like
Ronnie Coleman that's 300 pounds on stage.
Looking like a potato with abs.
It's like 130 kilos on stage.
Solid.
Ripped.
So for a bit of a point of reference for that sort of weight, that's like if I merged into you, but like cut my legs off maybe.
Yeah.
Right? Little less,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's almost 2 people. Most people walk around at like
60
to 80
it's
kilos.
basically
That's
2
like
people.
your
These guys
average
are
human.
massive.
They're huge. And that's not, oh, he's got a bit of extra weight. That's lean. That's like 1 to 3% body fat on stage on the day at 130 kilos.
Yeah.
It is insane. They barely look human.
So if I was just to say that sort of bodybuilding, absolutely not healthy.
Not even
for the majority,
close?
because you got to keep in mind, on stage they're at their weakest, they're severely dehydrated, they're basically starved down. All right. So on stage, terribly unhealthy.
That is my main point.
Plus,
Bodybuilding
plus
competitions.
they're
Not
pumping
healthy.
ungodly amounts of steroids and gear into their bodies, right? It's not healthy, okay?
So if you want a point of reference here as well, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was competing in
Olympia.
bodybuilding, right? Like 30, 40 years ago, whenever that was.
70s, yeah.
And then now look at the current bodybuilding champion in America at the moment and put side by side the physiques next to each other.
It's like 30, 40 kilos more weight.
It's
mass.
like
It's
a
crazy.
different type of
Yeah.
species. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So
Yeah.
that's the comparison we're going for.
Yeah.
So
But here, I just finished my thing. So, yes,
Yeah.
I would say it's unhealthy. It's terribly unhealthy on stage. And for the majority of the year when they're training and bulking, also terribly unhealthy. They have so much mass. And I know BMI is not really a thing because it doesn't take into account muscle. Like,
I'm obese.
right.
Apparently,
But
according to my BMI.
But you also have to take a pinch of salt. If you're a lean 150 kilos at 5'10", you still have to, your body is still handling all this weight and trying to keep up. And I guarantee you it's putting stress on their organs.
A good example of that actually is Ronnie Coleman isn't competing anymore because his back is ruined.
Oh, he's actually crippled. Yeah, he's had
The
so many
weight
surgeries.
of his own body has destroyed his spine.
Yeah.
That's how unhealthy it can be. It's basically the polar opposite of morbid obesity. It's the exact opposite of that. It's not good for you for many reasons.
And I would say when they're bulking, they're eating just a huge amount of food, a huge amount of supplements. So I would say in that case, it's not healthy. If you now, circling around, look at the newer divisions like men's physique, a lot more healthier because they're not going for mass and size. They're looking more like, can I look ripped in a pair of boardies?
So before we get into that, to explain the different categories for people who might not know that there are categories.
I don't even know all the categories.
I don't know all
they
the
have
categories.
open men's bodybuilding, which is the mass monsters, the
Yeah.
freaks. Then you have
then as
classic
it goes
bodybuilding,
down,
which is
there's-
guys that look like Arnie did back in the day.
There's physique
There's
as well,
men's physique,
which is
like
slightly
basically
different.
they're in their board shorts. It's all judged a little
No,
differently.
there's a few. There's one where you wear shorts. They don't judge your legs. It's just your upper body. And the guys aren't massive hulking monsters. They judge you on the most aesthetically pleasing physique. There's a few other ones. There's like a fitness one. There's a
Well, for females, there's fitness. I'm not sure about for guys.
fitness physique. And they're judged on different things. So like the open females, same thing. They're just big
Mass monsters.
And then they've got ones like, I think the fitness one, I think they get marked down if they have like really defined separated abs and stuff. So they want like a little less.
So
So,
there's
they're
definitely-
judged
there's-
in different categories as well. Still though, I'm strictly speaking about, let's look at it from a performance point of view.
Well,
Any
yeah.
of those people in any of those categories on stage at any one point in time couldn't run a race against me if I was running on one leg because they would all cramp up and fall over.
Yeah. So on stage, no, unhealthy for everyone. But I still would say the smaller divisions, like the men's physique, where they're just using board shorts, they're more or less pretty lean all year round and eating pretty clean for the most part of the year as well. They're not mass monsters, so I'd say their nutrition's probably pretty good. They're not carrying a crazy amount of weight on their body. They're working out regularly. I would say that on stage, obviously, they're compromised. And I would say if they do bulks, they're a little compromised. And if they're pumping a huge amount of steroids, they're compromised.
I would still have to say that just a hard no, that bodybuilding competitions in general.
I would say in general, unhealthy.
anything that you do where at the point of competition, you're at your weakest is probably not great. Even powerlifters doing massive weight cuts. You on the squat challenge cut 9 kilos in less than 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Yep. You squat 10 kilos less than your max. You're still squatting 260 freaking kilos. Still performing really, like performance-wise, your performance was less, but you're an athlete competing at an athletic level.
Mm-hmm.
Bodybuilding on stage, see if you can find them. It happens a lot. While they're doing their poses, they cramp up because they're dehydrated. They have no fat on their body, and they're just not feeling great at all.
Yeah,
in
I
a
would
bad
say
way.
in general it's probably unhealthy. But at the same time, guys, take that with a pinch of salt, because I think that most elites, people that compete in most sports at the elite level, a lot of sports have there's unhealthiness to it.
That's the weight cut thing in general is not always the best.
I don't even think it's just weight cutting. I mean, you look at rugby players at the elite level. These guys are super fit, but their bodies are taking an absolute physical thrashing.
Yeah, it's like
training sessions, games.
It's like getting in a car accident every single game.
So there's head trauma. There's also, I would say that actually goes for like most things at the very pinnacle of the sport. There's going to be unhealthiness to it.
I agree with you on that point there. The reason why I asked this question is because
You doing bodybuilding?
it really grinds my gears.
Oh, it grinds
that
your gears.
Health and fitness as a whole is online bullshit. Basically, everyone goes, lose weight fast, you'll be in the best shape ever, do this 12-week program. It's like all snake oil, right? It really just comes down to eat well, exercise, consistency. It's not rocket science, it's just hard. Bodybuilding is seen as the pinnacle of health and fitness, and people go on stage, they're like, look at this thing that I achieved. I understand that it's hard to get there and that it takes a lot to do it, but don't tell me that it's the pinnacle of health and fitness if it's not about being healthy or being fit.
Yeah,
You
I
look
won't tell you that.
great, but those two things aren't at all present in that. You know, it's silly. It really bugs me.
Okay.
I don't like it as a sport just because of it does health and fitness. It doesn't promote health or fitness. It's kind of frustrating.
It promotes extreme discipline and dedication to your cause. That's what it promotes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Same with wars though. You know? Like they weren't great for the people who didn't live.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Anyways.
We have one last question from a different Clear saying, when is the in-house strongman comp going to be?
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
When is that comp going to be?
It is not going to be. It is, sort of. We are going to do our second Record Breakers comp in December sometime. So that's a chance to break any of the powerlifting records on the powerlifting board. It's also a chance to break any of the obscure lifts on the obscure lift board. So the record powerlifting board, you can have the best, heaviest squat, bench, deadlift, or total for your gender and weight class. The obscure lift board is 5 lifts. We have 4 lifts and a jump.
Variations of all the main lifts.
Variations of all the main lifts. And the top 5 for men and top 5 for females get up there. So it's a chance for those people to come in and try to break those records. That's going to happen in December.
That was the first one that we did was actually really fun as well.
So much fun. I was cooking up a barbecue in the rain outside, but it was still fun.
Yeah.
So we're going to run that in December. And what I would like to do either in November, maybe December as well, is do an in-house strongman day. Not so much a comp, Claire, because too many people don't know how to do it. But between Adrian and myself, I'll get Megan and some people that are a bit more experienced in strongman. I might get Dan Macri and reach out to a few other people like that to come in and actually show and teach people that are interested how to do a log press, how to load a big sandbag, how to run the yoke, how to do the farmers. And we might just do a little bit of a friendly inter-house thing, you know? But nothing competitive on the strongman front, but I definitely am keen for a day to teach everyone how to do stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it just depends on who comes on the day. And if a few people want to compete, then who are we to stop them?
That's right.
So if enough people turn up and there's enough competition, sure.
I'm coming for you, Adrian.
Okay. I will never beat you at anything strongman related. So you've already won. Good job, Nevin. You're an athlete. And that's all of the questions that we had for this Q&A podcast. Mm-hmm. That was actually really fun. I liked a lot of the questions were really good this time.
Yeah.
Let's see what you have to say. If you have any more questions, please comment and let us know so we can throw them in the next one.
And if you're going to comment, it means you have to be signed in to YouTube. And if you're signed in, that means you may as well subscribe.
You know?
All right, because remember, when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're doing 1,000 100-kilo squats.
We're hungry for it.
We're so hungry for it. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Leave us your comments and questions, and we'll see you on the next one.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Perfect, guys. Have a good one.